Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for the inaugural. We now have interface with officers from Apex bodies. We welcome you back for the interface with officers with Apex bodies. In the chair, we have with us Colonel Dr. G. Tiruvasagam, Vice President AIU, and Vice Chancellor Amit Chennai. So let me quickly introduce him to you, ladies and gentlemen. Colonel Dr. G. Tiruvasagam is the second Vice Chancellor of Academy of Maritime Education and Training, deemed to be university. He obtained his PhD from Madurai Kamraj University in the discipline of management and later went on to do his postdoctorate from University of Southampton, United Kingdom. In addition to authoring 18 books, he has 36 publications to his credit. He is a member in some of the very prestigious bodies and committees. In recognition of his academic contributions in the field of higher education, Colonel Tiruvasagam was awarded with Colombo Plan Fellowship by the British Council, United Kingdom in 1992 and conferred with Colonel status by the Tamil Nadu State NCC Battalion in 2008. He has held several notable positions and received awards including the National Award for Social Service from the former President of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, and the Service Above Self Award from the Rotary International. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have two speakers for this meet, Dr. R.K. Soni, Director, AICTE, and Dr. K. Rama, former advisor, NAC. I will very briefly introduce both the speakers to you. Dr. Ravindra Kumar Soni, presently working as Director at AICTE and handling AICTE Training and Learning Academy at AICTE headquarters, New Delhi, and also handling AICTE activities of Northwest Region, Chandigarh as Regional Officer. Recently, ATAL Online FTP 2021 has been listed as a world record. He did his PhD in Management, Master of Business Administration, Postgraduate Diploma in International Business Management, MPhil Physics, MSc Physics with specialization in telecommunication. He completed UK India Technical Leadership Program and was awarded by Vice President of India for ERP contest of IGNOU. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring in the next speaker for you. Professor K. Rama Kondapalli has more than 30 years of experience in education administration, policy planning and management, quality assurance and research. She has served various Apex agencies in India, dealing with education like the Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India, All India Council for Technical Education, National Council for Teacher Education, and NAC in different capacities. In the international arena, she has worked with the UNESCO, UNRWA as Education Quality Assurance Officer, and has been the honorary advisor to the Commonwealth of Learning. In the capacity of a consultant, she is engaged with UNESCO, ADB, COL, and various agencies and ministries dealing with higher education and capacity building, training, conducting quality audits and evaluations, and drafting the education reform documents. Thank you for joining us today. Over to you, Dr. Tiruvasagam. Sir, you are muted, sir. You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Professor Susma, for the kind words of introduction. Honorable Vice Chancellor and the President of Association of Indian Universities, Dr. H. Pratap, beloved and most respected Secretary General of Association of Indian Universities, Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Geetham University, Dr. Sivaramakrishnan, most respected President of the esteemed Geetham University, Mr. M.C. Bharat, my panelists and eminent academicians, well-experienced administrators, Dr. R.K. Soni, the advisor, AICTE, Dr. K. Rama, the former advisor of AIC, NAC. Above all, the participating colleague vice chancellors. Namaskar, Vanakkam, Pranam to every one of you. I take it as an honor to be with you all in this session which has been exclusively given to us to have a face-to-face interaction with the representatives of the ABEX bodies of India, especially the leading ABEX bodies with whom we are working for several decades, that is AICTE and NAC. As mentioned by my President Tej Pratap and Secretary General Dr. Mittal, we are going to face another revolution in education. Our country met so many revolutions in the earlier history, start with Industrial Revolution, Green Revolution, White Revolution, Technology Revolution. That and all we have succeeded. Likewise, we have an opportunity of facing another revolution in education, for which the foundation was laid down by Dr. Kasturi Rangan, who is the architect of this National Education Policy 2020. As correctly observed by the Vice Chancellor of Geetham University, Dr. Sivaramakrishnan, it's going to be a landmark in the history of higher education in future. It gives answer for every one of us as academic heads and Vice Chancellors. We have been longing for such document which exhibits a lot of recommendations, not only limited with the recommendation, but also the ways and means to implement. Every Vice Chancellor is very happy about the documents what we have. And equally, we are happy that the UGC and other bodies, they started requesting the Vice Chancellors to plan and start implementing the National Education Policy with the support of various other bodies like AICTE, NAC, Medical Council of India, National Education Council, etc., etc. At this juncture, I would like to share with you, there are debates going on. We are discussing about governance, reforms, and financing higher education institution. On the same theme, lot of debates are going on among the academic administrators, even among the officials of the statutory bodies about NEP 2020 and its recommendation, very particularly about restructuring the governance, etc. Most of the arguments in the debates is whatever restructure we are planning, whatever new institutions we are going to create as per the NPP recommendations, unless the higher education institutions get autonomy in functioning, no fruitful result is going to happen. See, for every initiative nowadays, our planners, even our rulers, all the time they bring models from Western countries and other developed countries as well. Okay, we are very much interested to adhere the regulations notification of the government and bodies. When we introduce education policy or reforms, we have to keep in mind how far those universities in abroad have been given the flexibility and freedom to the universities to carry out the programs. We don't see, as said by my President Pratap Singh, Tej Pratap, and all the hands of the Vice Chancellors are very much tightened. But in spite of that, we are asked to go ahead and see that the higher education system should be globally competent. Yes, a country like India, which gives much importance for the social justice, has to take care of other things as well when you think about planning as par with the global universities and all. There is no reservation in admission. There is no reservation in appointment. There is no reservation in promotion of people in the countries what you quote. But the country of our nature should follow and to ensure social justice to all the sets of people. So what I would like to stress here, creating new infrastructure, going for governance reforms, and etc., etc., we must be given, the Vice Chancellor should be given, the higher education institutions should be given autonomy. For an example, because this session is meant for AICT and NAC. Hopefully, Dr. Soni will listen me and give appropriate, solution rather to say suggestions. AICT each year asks its colleges to upload and courses, upload the application as per the handbook and ask for the course approval every year. Think about it. What's a great autonomy given to us? Every year, the Vice Chancellors, the universities are in tension. Why every year? Why not once in 5 years? It seems you don't have confidence, faith on the system of higher education. Yes, that's why I want, there must be some flexibility and freedom to talk. At least in the restructure scenario, we may get such freedom, I think so. And moreover, again, AICTE, we want a lot of innovations, which has been very specifically given in the national education policy, that every university, every faculty, even student also should be very innovative. When the universities are coming with innovative programs of different nomenclature, AICTE tells, your nomenclature is not there in our list. Whatever you want to do it, you do it within the framework of the AICTE. Now, the kind of changes, we have to think about it and accommodate it. That's right. So, if we go with our new courses, we cannot upload it. That will be a rejection, and the final result will be deficiency at the end. This kind of changes we want under AICTE, or it's going to be Higher Education Council or Commission, doesn't matter. We want such privileges. Then only we can go with smooth sailing. Then come to University Grants Commission. We have 1,008 universities in India. What UGC wants? Any university wants to start even diploma program. The university should apply to UGC and get the approval. We are prepared to do it. But giving reply for 1,008 universities, is it possible? Is it reasonable? And whether we can get the reply in time also? By that time, 2 academic year will be over. But UGC will tell, we have been given many such privileges to the universities who have been given NAAC accreditation of A++. The institutions who are ranked the first 100 also can give them. Yes, I do agree with you. We Vice Chancellors are not only want to promote quantity alone in the higher education, we want to ensure quality also. But how you are going to reach the GR of 50% when you are going to give all these benefit only to the 100 ranking universities and to the A++ universities? There will be only handful number of universities. Now, at least for the introduction of courses, rest of the universities also should be given autonomy. Otherwise, we cannot reach GER as planned in 2050. We cannot go for access, equity, and excellence by taking care of the all downtrodden people come to the higher education system. So such kind of relaxation we expect from UGC as well. See, before coming to my session, I would like to make an appeal to UGC and AICTE. In the meantime, I would like to register my appreciation for NAAC. We had, this is the 5th conference. During I think the 3rd conference, Dr. Jagannath Reddy, one of the advisors of NAAC, listened all our issues and came out with a message. He told, NAAC will be sending a format to all the universities. And in this format, Vice Chancellor are invited to give their views. What are all the changes you want in the framework of NAAC, in the question pattern of the NAAC, as against in education policy? Thank you very much, the director of NAAC and other officials of NAAC. Last date was yesterday. Most of the Vice Chancellors, I think all the Vice Chancellors, we have submitted our desire, our opinion about the changes we want in the accreditation process. Likewise, it is my appeal to AICTE. AICTE always believe in participating management, and UGC also believes more on participating management. Please involve Vice Chancellors. Please get the opinion of Vice Chancellors like NAC. Send some formats and see that what kind of requests Vice Chancellors want to place before you. And you try to accommodate. That will be the participative way of taking decisions for implementation. Unless there is going to be a participation, implementation cannot be successful forever. It is my appeal. With these 4 words of my observation, I want to take only another 5 minutes. Then I can request to my panelists to go for each one 15 minutes, and we have to allot 30 minutes for the participating Vice Chancellors to raise questions, please. Please allow me to share a slide. Only 4 slides with a few minutes. Are you able to see my presentation? Hello, are you able to see my presentation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. See, I'm sorry. It is about governance reforms and financing of higher education. Dr. Kasturi Rangan, he has done really a good homework with the support of eminent experts. As far as the governance is concerned, he has made several observations very openly and given openly also in the report. It goes like that. Heavy concentration of power with a few bodies. Yes, I don't want to explain. Already my president told very openly, his powers are with a few bodies, concentration of powers, without giving autonomy to the participating universities. Then conflict of interest among these bodies. Yes, it is also there. No one can deny. No coordination between the bodies. Yes. NAC requests the student faculty ratio is 1:15. But UGC allows 1:20. The Director General of Shipping, which comes and this deals with maritime, it gives 1:40. There is no coordination. When people come for inspection to this organization, they get it confused. There should be a uniformity in all such things. Need for complete overhauling. That is the recommendation given by Dr. Kasturi Rangan. What is the recommendation proposed? Establishing centralized, utility-oriented and transparent regulatory system. Ensure distinctive functions, accreditation, funding and academic standard setting. Participation of the leaders of higher education institutions and representatives of various statutory councils. Yes, I listened to the speech of the president of the Gidam University, Mr. Bharat. Really, he is a visionary. The information, what I learned from him, must be shared by higher education bodies. Now there is an opportunity there. They are giving representation to the people of the representatives of private universities and public universities also. It is a welcome future. Then implementation strategy, what he has given, to establish a Higher Education Council of India. And under that, there are going to be many bodies like, to promote other bodies like NHERC and HEGC, create a check and balance in the system to minimize conflict of interest that will alone help us to work smoothly and to eliminate concentration of power in affects bodies. The powers of the affects bodies must be sliced down and to create 4 structures to form 4 functions with 4 verticals under Higher Education Council of India. That is also a welcoming feature as well. And the vertical, 2 comes under the accreditation. Again, the framework and the constitution of NAC is going to be reorganized under the heading of National Accreditation Council. The accreditation process will be based on basic norms, public self-disclosure, good governance, and outcome. It's all, even now it is being taken into consideration. Accreditation will be done by independent ecosystem. It is a welcome feature. And hereafter, it is my understanding, hopefully Dr. Rama will brief in detail, NAC alone is not going to be the accrediting body. There will be some few more accrediting body and the base of the domain. If it is a medical, it's going to be given to a separate council dealing with the medical. If it is a maritime, it is going to be deal with the domain of maritime. Likewise, it's a very interesting. And one more thing also, we need clarification from Dr. Rama. Robust system of graded based on accreditation. What is graded accreditation? And they are telling it's not going to like A++ or something like that. It is going to be graded or not graded. And once it is given for 15 years, that kind of confusion is there. We need some more focus on this. The last one, long-run accreditation will become a binary process. It is also a welcome feature. What's the challenge? Resource constraint the government universities is a challenge. Yes, sir. Even the state universities, some of the universities, payment of salary every month is a major problem. Even making payment of pension is a major problem. That kind of constraint is there. Now, I'm happy the government is going to give 6% of the GDP to higher education, out of which, again, the problem is these 6% should be mobilized by both the state and central governments. I don't know how far all the state government is going to contribute as a matching grant, and that will be compensated and bring to 6%. When it's the case, it's not going to happen in the near future. How we are going to give reply to the state universities who are suffering loss? Most of the state universities, they depend upon income from distance education. Now, again, there is a very big break given by UGC saying that all the universities not permitted to conduct distance education program, only the ranked universities alone to be taken into consideration. Again, it is a very big bottleneck to think about GER in a greater level, and this will reduce the income generation of state universities. It will be a problem. And again, lesser priority in funding to the private and deemed universities. See, this is a challenge. I'm happy in new education system, there's a equal opportunities going to be given to share the funding. If it's a research, 50-50, out of the total fund available, 50% to the government universities and 50% to the private universities also. This is a welcome future because even private and deemed universities are also doing tremendous work as far as the area of research is concerned. Thank you very much, fellow participants. Now I am inviting our fellow panelists to share their views through presentations for 15 minutes each. And after both the presentations, I can invite Vice Chancellors to interact with the panelists. With these words, I invite Dr. Soni, please give your address.
Thank you so much, sir. Hope I'm audible. Very good afternoon. Honorable.
Very much audible, sir. Audible, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Honorable Dr. Tej Pratap ji, the President AIU and VC GB Pant, University of Agriculture and Technology, Pantnagar. Vice President, I just heard Colonel Dr. G. Tiruvasagam ji, Vice President, the AIU, and the Vice Chancellor, AMET, Chennai. Secretary General, AIU, Dr. Pankaj Mittal, ma'am. Heard in the first session, inaugural session, very young President of Geetam, Shri Bharat. the Vice Chancellor of Geetham, Professor K. Sivaramakrishna, and my co-panelist, the former advisor, Dr. Rama, all honorable Vice Chancellor from across the country joining this Vice Chancellor conference, my colleague from different apex bodies. In fact, first of all, I'd like to congratulate to AIU for this marathon, the Vice Chancellor Conference, the last one in series, the 5th one, Journal Vice Chancellor Conference, the one that is the main, the Vice Chancellor Conference is remaining. So a lot of congratulations to AIU. As mentioned by Professor Mittal, AIU had been very active during COVID. And I had seen the many other organizations were very active, including AICTE. We were also very active during the COVID. I'll take up through my presentation. I'd like to, first of all, address the concern raised my weakness, you can say.
Dr. Soni, I think you have some network issue.
Disconnected because of maybe internet. I hope I'm audible again.
Now, very well, yeah. very well.
Extremely sorry. Sir, first concern, I'll take up PP presentation. I know that time is very less, and because a lot of time has already been taken, it is 1 to 2 and 12 to 1, and this one is reaching. So I'll just brief it and finish it off. But the concern which you raised, I'd like to take up. First of all, you told that institutions are asked to take approval every year, and whether AICTE is not having faith on institutions. So it's not that I'm not going to defend the AICTE action, but I'm going to tell that what action we are going to take in this direction, what action is being taken has already been taken. So in fact, the information dissemination is very important. And if the information is known to everyone that what the bodies are doing, I think this communication gap will not be there. And therefore, it's the right opportunity for me to disseminate this information to everyone, to all the honorable vice chancellors, including AIU officials, that though we are requesting all the institutions for every year approval, but actually, practically, it is not true. Now, let me tell how it is. We are requesting all the institutions. Once we give approval to the institutions, after that, subsequent approval, if no change is being asked by the institutions, they have to update the data. Sometimes faculty leave the institutions, or sometimes they add the faculty. They have to update the data and they'll get the approval. And it is computerized, automated. There is no human intervention at all. So only it is an updation of the data every year, which is required in fact, because in 1 year, it changes in fact. A lot of data changes, a lot of things happen in the institutions. So it is only updation. But when the institution wants some changes, suppose addition of some program, addition of some courses, addition of some branches, increase in number, increase in seats, increase in some other courses, and then they require that kind of infrastructure facilities that only we assess it. So it is not true that we don't have faith. We have 100% faith, more than that. And that's why it is fully automated. We don't intervene in subsequent approval. Institution fill the data and they get the approval automatically. even if deficiency is there, sir, I just wanted to mention that even if deficiency is there, they get the approval. So practically, it is not true that we are asking every year, though you can say it is we are asking, of course, but it is only facilitating to the institutions for updation of the data every year. So regarding nomenclature, you told, yes, earlier it was. For the last few years, I can say 5-6 years, though AICTE is a regulatory body, but now we are happy that it is we are facilitator rather than a regulator. So nomenclature, if you request either through a simple mail or you simple letter or personally you intervene or you interact with us and you request that this nomenclature is required, and we definitely give every year, every university this particular chance of freedom that they can add nomenclature. I don't know whether it reaches to you or not. If it is not reaching, we have to find out the reason for that. We request every university every year that if they want a new nomenclature, they can tell in time. So if we get in time, we automatically add it. So you still serve. If you want some new nomenclature, you are welcome. You write to the AICTE. You will be happy to know every single mail written to the Honorable Chairman of AICTE is replied. And it may be 1,000 mail in a day, but every single mail written to the chairman is replied. So if you write, I hope it will definitely be taken care of. I'm thankful to you, sir. You told that AICTE believe on participative management. Yes, we do believe. We practice it, sir. I just wanted to share one practice before we finalize the approval process handbook every year. We finalize the approval process handbook every year, and that become a Bible for approval for AICTE, and we go by that. We follow that approval process handbook. But before we finalize the approval process handbook, we consult all stakeholders. We are regularly in touch with UGC, and whatever regulation comes, and ultimately it affects to AICTE also. And therefore, the conflict you were talking about, of course, we try to minimize, and I hope now you might have seen it's almost minimized. It's a very minimum, in fact, say, and not visible nowadays, at least. Now, Madam Dr. Pankaj Mittal is very senior official of UGC and AIU, and smiling face. I can see that might be thinking, yes, still there are conflicts, but ma'am, we could minimize it. That's what I wanted to assure. I just was sharing, before we finalize the approval process handbook, we consult all stakeholders. Earlier, before pandemic, we used to invite all stakeholders physically in our campus. We listen them. Whatever advice, whatever suggestion they give, like you told, NAAC had given one performer to every university and asked the changes they want. So every year we do that. Not the first time. You told that NAAC had done it first time. Every year we do it. It is in process. It is in built process in AICTE now. The consultative process. We invite all the stakeholders, including honorable vice chancellors, and we request them what changes they want. We give them a pro forma written. We ask them to give in writing. We listen also, and then we incorporate it. So even if they don't attend that consultative process, stakeholders meeting, as I told, you are welcome, sir, and it is open. It is not like when we give chance and then only you write it. Without giving chance, it's open to you. You write to the authorities of AICTE, the honorable vice chairman, chairman, member secretary, or any officers of the AICTE. It will reach to the top, and then the due consideration will definitely be given. I'd like to take up a small presentation, and I just wanted to share this conference theme is as per the theme, that is governance reform, what reform we have taken and what reform is being taken. In fact, after NEP, after implementation of, not NEP, I should say after the bill is passed, the lot many changes will be visible. Here we are trying to implement it, and lot many things we are implementing in line of NEP. So though the presentation is little marathon one, but I leave many of the slides. I'll take up precise what in line of NEP AICT is doing and what exactly during the pandemic we did. Allow me to share presentation. I'll not take up what are the reforms being taken by AICT. We have been presenting it in many forums, but what are in line of NEP, I'll just definitely take up and during the pandemic. Everyone knows that the approval process of AICT had been only offline. Whether it's the scrutiny, institution used to come to the regional offices and headquarters. AICT team used to visit campuses, and then the approval process finalized. That is from January to April. This happens every year. During the pandemic last year, the lockdown was imposed in last March. Approval process was in peak. We were planning to visit. We were planning for scrutiny, physical scrutiny, and all of a sudden we came to know that lockdown is there. The pandemic hit our doorstep. The AICT functioning was completely shut down for a week. And we thought what to do now, because there was an order from Honorable Supreme Court that by 30th we have to complete the approval every year. But it was extraordinary situation. We approached to Honorable Supreme Court and got that deadline extended. But before that, we experimented, we tried for online approval. It's my pleasure to share this information to everyone, to entire country, to all the Honorable Vice Chancellor here and with the AIO UGC, with NAC. Now the entire approval process is online. Is a completely online. Scrutiny of the documents is online. Then standing hearing committee is online. Then the visit, the campus visit is online. Now no official of AICTE, no committee of AICTE, not officials stopped visiting long back, but committees still were visiting before pandemic. Now it is stopped. It is online. We use the technology. I'm just emphasizing on reform. If we use the technology, lot many things will can be done. So even the visit is not physical, it's only online, and now it is a permanent feature. This year also it will be online, and in the future. Now we have come out with the regulation that AICT approval process will only be online even in the future. If some regulation changes, that is a different issue. But as of now, what we feel, what we wish, that the entire approval process will be online. There will not be any physical intervention. There will not be human intervention in that. Human intervention will be there, but like here in interactions, this kind of interaction, that too will be online. In line of NEP, we conducted a hackathon, that too online. Conducted Singapore India hackathon, this ASEAN India hackathon, that too online. The hackathon conducted online. Then animation hackathon, this all conducted by IIC, and that too in during the pandemic. So that kind of reform is being taken by AICTE. I'll take up a few more. Under AICT Training and Learning Academy, my previous speakers, in fact, introduced me with that only, that AICT Training and Learning Academy. During this pandemic, we conducted many online FDPs. In fact, FDP in India happened to only offline. It was never online. As I told, when after lockdown, we again experimented online FDP, and under AICT Training and Learning Academy initiative, we scaled the activity because the faculty were in residence. Resource personnel were also there in residence. They had a lot of time, as mentioned by Honorable Dr. Pankaj Mittal, that we had little time during pandemic because travel was not there. So little time was there. And therefore, we could scale this particular activity, AICTE Training and Learning Academy. 3 years ago, AICTE prepared one perspective plan, and that is a part of governance, in fact, governance reform. We prepared a perspective plan, what kind of programs is required for the country, for the development of the country. We identified some thrust areas, some 9-10 thrust areas we identified, including AI, ML, DL, data sciences, AR, VR, quantum computing, some 3D printing, some technologies we identified. And thereafter, we started empowering faculty on those areas under AICTE Training and Learning Academy initiative. As I told, in 2021, we scaled the activity, and on those areas, not only 9 thrust areas, but AICTE with different boards. AICTE is having around 10 boards, and with these 10 boards, we identified around 100 emerging areas for the country. And on those 100 emerging areas, including the implementation of NEP is one emerging areas for us now. On those, many faculty development programs are being conducted. And my pleasure to share that the online Atal FDP 2021 have become a world record, because it has gone to the scale. We trained more than 1 lakh faculty across the country in just 1 year. And it is not only that benchmark, now it will become a regular feature. We are targeting that every year with face-to-face mode, with the online mode and the blended mode as mentioned by Mr. Bharat, that there should be a blended mode. So there should be access, in fact. And with that blended mode, we'll be training more than 1 lakh faculty every year. I'll not take much time, but just few bullet points, which I've already spoken, in fact, and then I request everyone, here to ask any questions regarding AICTE if want. That now, as already mentioned, I'm just emphasizing that point. That approval process, and including the physical visit, now we made it is online. And that is one we always emphasize. We always say we take. We always loudly say that this is one of the initiative which we wanted to change before pandemic. We never did it. We could not do it. Only pandemic forced us to go online, and now we made it a regular feature in that. As sir told that it's a perspective management. Yes, it's not only that for qualitative, for enhancing the quality. Not only the training to the faculty, but incubation center. I just wanted to mention here that MHRD Innovation Cell is hosted by AICTE. Through that, we are pushing towards innovation, and also now the new initiative, the IKS, Indian Knowledge System. As we all know that during the pandemic, somehow we could sustain. Even very developed country could not sustain, could not fight that corona well, and still they are fighting. But we could fight well, and I hope this is because of our Indian knowledge system or because of the values. With this note, I'd like to congratulate all stakeholders here, especially AIU and Geetham University, and a lot of thanks given. Thank you so much given me opportunity to share my thoughts over here, share the thoughts of the AICTE. During this interaction, if I get any queries, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day. Yeah, over to you, sir.
Yes, Dr. Soni. Now we feel we are under the real, rather to say, care of motherly care of AICTE. And you have taken everything positively, the comments made by me and the others as well. And only one thing, the recording, every year you are getting, you are involving vice chancellors at the time of filling up the handbook. It is going on well. Really, I appreciate the process what you have. What I meant, the NAAC sent a proforma asking the opinion of the vice chancellors about changes required after while implementing the national education policy. national education policy. That's why, because AICTE is also very keen in the universities implementing national education policy with real spirit, for which I appeal to the AICTU, please, design a format, send to the Vice Chancellor, get the opinion while they implement what changes they want in the handbook or in other areas, because AICTE is not limited only with the academic. Really, AICTE is doing a lot of programs of research, innovation, placement, internship, so on, so on. Whatever success we see in all campuses, the major credit goes to AICTE only. That's why I meant that format, Dr. Soni.
We welcome your suggestions, sir, and we'll definitely doing it.
Thank you, sir. May I invite Dr. Rama, the former advisor of NAC. Sorry, madam, we didn't get the opportunity of listening to you the last conference. Due to some technical issue, we were not able to join. Today is the day of Dr. Rama. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I also missed my presence and my listening to great speakers in my last presentation, but I took a brief from my officers. Without wasting time, I would like to share my slides. And I am very much honored to be among the esteemed dignitaries, honorable vice chancellors, and learned members from AIU, Secretary General, Dr. Pankaj Mittal. As Soniji has said, she has such a vast experience across bodies, and really, the lead she takes is like very influencing factor for the higher education institutions. It was good to hear from Tej Pratap ji, especially when NEP is getting a lot of focus on agriculture-based systems, both in NEP and the new budgetary reforms, and in the view of pandemic, the type of influence the agriculture is progressing, and having a president from that area of study, I think, is going to influence the whole system a lot. And also, I have this vibrant Vice President Thiruvasan ji, who has been heading such eminent institutions and taken up this maritime institution, which I know when we were accrediting this, the challenges we had in accrediting this maritime institution, and the programs of offer, because NAC always tries to align with the sister organizations, the regulatory agencies like UGC, AICTE, NCTE, Rehabilitation Council, so that there is no conflict in the processes. Otherwise, this multiple agencies' involvement in the university systems has been a big challenge to the universities. They were all through, engaged in filling pro formas for various institutions, giving data in different forms and formats, and not able to really relate their initiatives to the, quality and the outcomes expected by these various agencies. Sir, you have very vividly explained, and your note in the beginning of this session was really thought-provoking, and not only for us at the agency, but also, we had been constantly discussing on these issues, and your involvement, like eminent people like you, has been a great contribution to the education systems and the quality education processes, sir. Also, I also would acknowledge the contributions of Geetham University, the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Srinivas, and the young President, Dr. Bharat, who I had an opportunity to meet and listen to them in quite a number of forums. And it is one of the highly rated institutions as per NAC accreditation process is concerned. And also, I see that there are many administrators, that is registrars and finance managers, finance officers participating in this. Thank you to AIU persons, and I also thank Dr. Rama Devi Pani, who has been creating a sort of spirit of recording initiatives of various institutions through the AIU newsletter. Her contributions also, I think, for last 2 decades has been quite good. So I thank AIU and the Geetham University for giving me this opportunity to be here amongst all of you. I just, NAC had been fortunate in moving swiftly towards integrating the NEP issues even before formalizing into their manuals. It has been fortunate in 2 ways. One, the NEP drafting committee was hosted by NAC in its own office. And it was the moment and time when NAC was reforming its processes, and the present process which has been, which came into implementation, was drafted looking at the viewpoints of the various experts who were present there while drafting the NEP, and hearing to them and discussing with them and taking their opinions. So you feel that, that flavor of NEP already in the current process in many ways. If you see the curriculum process, the first criteria, the curriculum criteria, you see a lot of outcomes-based education is discussed. Lots of enrichment of the curriculum is discussed. Lots of addition of certificate courses, value-added courses, enrichment programs are listed in this first criteria. You also look at the flavor of this NEP visible again in criteria 3, when we talk of institutional social responsibility, a lot of outreach activities and students' involvement in various social activities and their participation in national development, etc., which has been one of our core values. Again, if you go to the 4th criteria, we don't have much stress on that because it is based on infrastructure. But if you look at the 5th criteria, again, which is related to student support and progression, you see lots of things which come in there. Though we say it is student support and progression, you can look at the type of support in terms of financial supports, FDP programs, teacher quality programs, learning support, support in terms of personal counseling, developing social attributes has been richly embedded into this criteria 5. And if you come to criteria 6, again, you talk a lot on organization and management, financial management and organization, where you see, look at strategy development issues, new financial and, structural initiatives, structural transformation initiatives of the universities and colleges, and how are they viewing, how are they planning ahead for the near future, what are their quality improvement initiatives, what they are planning, how they are planning to be, or how they viewing themselves as Dr. Bharat has said, to be a transformative institution, how they are going to transform into an institutions of excellence. This is what we have extensively covered in criteria 6. The more contributive criteria in the present context is our criteria 7. We have lot focus on sustainable development issues, which is the core, of many of these, initiatives happening across the globe, and preparing our, engaging our youth, and utilizing the promise of the demographic dividend we have as India. We are sitting on a mine of human resources. So this sustainable development issues which are covered in criteria 7 is an open-ended criteria, and it is dedicated to the institutions to tell how best they are doing and what are the good things they are doing, what are their best practices happening in the institution, institutions, to share with the world, and also to tell what are the challenges under a given challenging situation, because I feel every Indian institution works under challenging and stressful, pressurized situations, but they have been faring well and they have been coming out with colors. So how are they contributing? What are their efforts? All these last criteria 7, we have dedicated it to the institutions. It is an open-ended criteria, and this has been our contribution in dedication to the quality initiatives of the institutions as we entered into 25 years of establishment of NAAC. So this was our contribution in terms of this. So regarding the other policy issues of multiple regulatory agencies coming on board, and mandatory accreditation regulations of UGC, which has been in existence, how do institutions view them? How do institutions take them up and move ahead? Are some of the things. And also, if you look at the financial component, and if you look at the questions, most often people say that we are asking a very what you call a sort of very unrealistic type of questions. This is the major complaint given by the institutions to NAAC. But if you look at the norm-based funding of UGC, the guidelines given by them, and the 3 types of funding, that is the performance-based funding and the standards-based funding and the unit cost-based funding, which is being implemented by various states as well as the central governments, we have integrated those issues while taking care of the questions on budgeting, financing institutions, because this becomes a major component when we look at the 4 pillars of higher education, that is relevance, quality, access, equity, and cost, which has been a major issue. Cost, both in terms of reducing cost and improving quality, reducing cost and improving access, reducing cost and improving relevance. Everything is surrounded by cost of education. In this country, with this vast population where majority do not comprise of that so-called elite sections of the society, cost of education makes a difference. And with a low cost, quality, relevant, accessible higher education is what NAAC really looks at. How the institutions are achieving this is what NAAC looks at through all crisscrossing the 7 criteria. And I request all the participants and the vice chancellors and the administrators to understand the intent of our questions or the criteria and not look at them as a simple form filling exercise. If you have the right intent, and if you can understand the intent with which you are responding to a query, I think you will be presenting the best of yours. But if you don't understand the intent, and if you just present what the data is available with you, I think you will neither enjoy the tool, nor your performance as an institution will come out, nor you can excel in your own institutional initiatives. Because there are a lot of things which are happening in the organizational structures and the financial management of institutions across sectors. For example, this direct beneficiary schemes of the central government now doesn't give the responsibility of dispersing the scholarships to the institution. Amounts directly go and enter into the accounts of the students. But it is necessary. So when we ask a question, how many of your students receive government scholarships? Many institutions say that, now there is a direct beneficiary scheme, so we don't have data with us, so we can't provide you data. This is a general response. But as an institution, are you not responsible to know what strata, from what strata your students are coming, what is their economic background, what is the type of support they need, what is their family's educational background. You are losing touch with the background of the student and providing a mechanized type of education to one and all the same type of education. So that means you are not able to achieve what you call your vision, or achieve the dig out the potential of the student. So it is very important for you. Suppose if you have to provide an enrichment program, suppose you have to provide a sort of value added programs, if you have to provide some sort of certificate or additional programs to your students, unless you know their background, both academic, financial and social strata, I don't think you can provide quality education, or you don't give the type of learning a quality institution should provide to the students. So these are some of the things which we have embedded into the NAAC processes. And as I said, we could steal some of the ideas of Professor Kasturi Rangan and other eminent drafting personalities who have been sitting day-long, months-long at NAAC campus. And every evening, when they were free, we used to go and interact with them. Sometimes they used to personally call us and interact and say, what is this data? So we also at NAAC reviewed our data. There is a very, very surprising finding when we see at NAAC data. Even the highly rated institutions are performing very poorly in criteria 5, that is student support and progression, and criteria 6, that is organization and financial management. Very, very poorly. Most of them have scored less than the highest score in these 2 criteria. So this particular forum, I think, will be giving a lot of insights, and institutions, I request institutions to retrospect on these 2 criteria. And as I said, I would again repeat that it will be good if you respond to the any qualitative questions or quantitative questions, understanding the intent of that question, intent of the requesting organization, also your own intent. What is your intent in doing a particular activity? So this is what we have done, and we are trying to reduce the burden on the institutions. In terms that we have started working on the new initiatives already. The annual quality assurance reports are online now, and our future plan, if we succeed, is to compile these annual quality assurance reports, 5 years annual quality assurance reports, into an SSR and evaluate the performance. And this annual quality assurance reports are not for NAAC's purpose, but it is to build a sort of quality culture in the institution. It is to evaluate their own quality. So at a particular point of time, there should be a situation where there need not be any external agency monitoring the quality of any institution. Every institution should translate themselves to be a self-accrediting institution. So this is a start point we have taken, this annual quality assurance reports. This is what our ultimate goal is, to transform institutions to be self-accrediting, self-quality declaring institutions, and based on some self-declarations which will be on the websites. This is one of the major initiatives we have taken, and we along with aligning our processes with the national bodies, our sister organizations, we also have a commitment to align ourselves to an international agency's declarations. So we have though made 70% of our process online, totally online, everything submitted online. 30% still we retained to be offline, because this is a process-oriented verification which has to be seen. So process is reflected in the impact, and also on the personal viewing of the institution's descriptive processes. And this is a requirement from various international agencies. We are the only one agency so far conducting student satisfaction survey. In future, we also plan to conduct teacher satisfaction survey, though we need some more time to do this, but we have to mature to also conduct a teacher satisfaction survey, so that teacher development, teacher empowerment, and teachers' autonomy are respected, along with learners' autonomy and learners' empowerment. The student satisfaction survey was initiated as not as an inspectorial or policing taking off from the students, but it is instituted. If you see at the questions, it is aimed at learner empowerment and respecting learners' autonomy, so that, as said in NEP, we will create an Atmanirbhar Bharat. So this was our initiative. So we started from the bottom, and we would like to take it upwards, move towards teacher satisfaction surveys, so that there is a proper integration of the whole system and a partnered approach. As our chairman has said, there will be a partnered approach in building quality of the institution. And there will be a 360 degrees assessment within the institution, and you will be always readily exposing yourself to any third-party accreditation or third-party investigation which can happen in the future. These are some of the initiatives we have taken at NAAC. Given the short, I can run through my slides. I have prepared
Madam, now I'm sorry, but whatever you have made a presentation, really worth listening, very much value oriented as well. We have a feeling that how we have missed you, not only in this conference, and hopefully all the participating vice chancellors and universities, they will send an invitation to you to come to their conference, speak about all these criterion wise, lot of new information you brought out. That and all will be much useful while we are going to face the accreditation as well. And we're supposed to close it by 1 o'clock, because next session starts by 2 o'clock. In between, the vice chancellors will be given an opportunity of putting their questions as well. Okay, people will be think about the lunch. Whatever you want to present, please give it in the form of reply. Hopefully, our vice chancellor will be putting their question. Okay. Please,
sir, I understand, sir.
Really,
I understand.
Really, your speech is very much impressive, thought-provoking, informative also. It's okay. Let us initiate you what you have taken. You brought your knowledge. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Now, the floor is before the panelists. I invite the Honorable Vice Chancellors. Please make use of this ample opportunity and put your questions, get it clarified. Please. Please introduce yourself and put your questions.
Dr. Soni, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
What I want to know is, after the implementation of NEP, when HACCI and 4 verticals are there, and in HACCI, AICT, NCT, and UGC are sort of being clubbed together, then who will be doing the, say, role of AICT, I mean, approval of AICT institutions and all? I mean, will there be a separate PSSB for engineering, or AICT will be bifurcated into 2 parts? Some part will go to HACCI and some part will go to become a PSSB, or HACCI will perform the function of PSSB. So what will be there? There's a little bit of confusion over here.
See, first of all, this will be decided only after the bill. But what we perceive and what we can, I mean, assume what will happen, that only I can say. And that may not be the final that you know it. That is one regulatory council will be there, should be there. and the regulatory council should regulate the entire education, including technical education and other education, maybe pharmacy too. I'm not telling that, but the entire education. So there will be one vertical, that is the regulatory council, that will regulate the entire education, including technical. So AICTE.
You're saying AICTE will become NHERC?
I'm not telling you it will become. Whoever will become or whoever responsibility will be given, they will be taking care of it. It's a premature if I say AICTE will become. It's a premature, particularly in this forum. I should not say.
Okay, so you mean that all the NHERC, all the regulatory functions of AICTE, NCT, and UGC will be taken care of by the NHERC?
Yes, ma'am. That is there.
Good. And Dr. Rama, you feel that when NAAC is there, National Assessment Council, National Accreditation Council is there, so that will be a meta accrediting agency which will be accrediting the multiple accrediting institutions for further accrediting the institutions of the programs. So where do you perceive the role of present NAAC over there, as one of the accrediting institutions or as the meta accrediting institution?
NAC will be a meta accrediting institution. That is how, as of now, the discussion points are emerging to be. But you know how the roles of professional bodies coming up in program accreditation will surface, and with this academic bank of credits coming on board, what will be the new terms of outcomes based accreditation? It has to be still looked into, and where the institutional accreditation will be located in this large space of accreditation is another point of view which need to be reviewed.
And also because the NEP says that it will be ultimately binary.
Binary.
Accredited or not accredited, then what? We are having many regulations which are depending upon the score of accreditation. So there has to be a lot of change in the way we regulate, because we were thinking that accreditation will become a new normal for regulation, that the ones who are highly accredited will get more autonomy, more independence, and the ones who are lowly accredited, they'll be getting, I mean, a lot of hand-holding will be there. But with this binary, there'll be a lot of difference in the approach towards regulation, isn't it? And also, I mean, I think in future, because of this ABC and all, the emphasis will be on program-wise accreditation rather than institutional accreditation. I don't know. I suppose both will be there, but the emphasis on program-wise accreditation seems to be more in view of the programs like ABC.
Yeah, looking at, you know, with this ABC coming on board, institutional accreditation will carry more meaning. If you look at the international accreditation strategies, most of them started with program accreditation, and when this type of multiple exit and entry formats and integrated degree forms have come on board, they had to shift to institutional accreditation. And especially when this credit transfer issues came in, they were looking at institutional accreditation as more important, or equally important, not more important, but equally important for program accreditation. And when we are talking a lot of integration of distance mode of education and you know, MOOCs, online modes of education as a part of the regular F2F programs, institutional accreditation also becomes more important. That is one component. Regarding the binary accreditation, I think it will not influence much on the present reform or policy initiatives, because only instead of A++, B or whatever it is, we will give accredited, not accredited, with of course the CGPA. So if you look at the present policy formulations, we have both grade and CGPA together being associated. For distance education, if you see it is 3.26, if you get, then you will be getting a permission for distance mode. So similarly for graded autonomy, it is 3.51 and above. So it is the CGPA which makes a difference and not really the grades. Grades are basically, you know, because you know, we had a lot of feedback on.
CGPA will also go with binary. It will be, there will be no CGPA, no grading. It will be only yes or no. That's all. And
No.
isn't it?
Yeah, no, but but when we gave the feedback to NEP and all, it was literally, all institutions has agreed that there will be a CGPA associated with the yes or no. Just yes or no will not give much meaning to any accrediting body. Under the international recognition of accreditation agencies outcomes, we are party to that as a country. There should be some sort of outcome which should be presented to the institutions. So that outcomes will be represented by, in form of CGPA. And it's not binary, doesn't mean just yes or no. But, if we can further take ahead, mature the binary system to tell like what NBA is doing for 3 years, 5 years, tier 1, tier 2 institutions, you can always classify within the binary accreditation process. This is what the feedback we had when we had large conference on this NEP implementation strategies. Immediately the first draft was released, especially on how to move towards binary accreditation, what are the accreditation reforms we had. So based on the feedback, this is what we have given to the implementation unit of MHRD, the feedback that it should happen like this. So this is what is.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, if you allow me, I just wanted to add one thing, that after NEP implementation or after the new bill, there will be a lot of self-disclosure based approval. Rather than what kind of approval is going on right now, I think it will be completely revamped, and the concern of Honorable Vice President will automatically be addressed.
Yes. That's right. That's good as well. It's a good move. Sir, any other Vice Chancellors?
Yeah, just it's not a question. I think as Dr. Rama has mentioned, it's a process for improvement. There is no end for any process of improvement. NAC itself has experimented. When we see from 2000 onwards, lots of changes have happened. Out of their experience, they are coming out with criteria-wise changes, or grading-wise, or process-wise, and all that. That's what I sincerely request all the members. Okay, we can give our opinions and critique and all that. At the end of the day, once it is finalized, as Rama has mentioned, the intent we have to understand. That's the main problem. When we have gone for an accreditation 2005, I have read each and every sentence and criteria many number of times. Otherwise, we can't really understand the intent. So unless the intent is understood, we can't communicate to our own faculty, teaching, non-teaching, and all these people. Unless they absorb it and really feel it, the real result will not come. That is the responsibility of the accredited agencies and institutional heads, and again different levels in the university. Otherwise, if you do it just mechanically, yes, no, and data filling and all that, we never ever feel happy. We never ever feel the importance of that. It's just only to supplement what Dr. Rama has mentioned. Thank you.
Yeah, very good observation, Vice Chancellor, sir. Good, thank you. I need a few more Vice Chancellors to come forward and raise your voice. Okay, it seems all our friends are very happy about the presentation and very much satisfied about the views what you have put forth as. And finally, I would like to summarize, not to with by taking time, but one appeal to all the Vice Chancellors. See, we Vice Chancellors, we study very closely, line by line, even word by word, the new education policy. But we are the people to take forward in the form of implementation in our campus to take our institution globally competent. So in the meantime, we may come across certain practical difficulties and issues. This we have to share with the apex bodies. As already you might have filled up the format given by NAC. If not, now it's a time. You can write to the chairman UGC, the chairman AICTE, the chairman NAC, and other heads of statutory bodies what are all the difficulties you are going to encounter, what kind of changes you want. Please need not delay, because the bill is going to come again as predicted by Dr. Soni, before which all our grievances, all our requests should reach the concerned affects bodies. Whenever you send such a communication, please mark a copy to Secretary General of Association of Indian University. We will also consolidate and to see that we will also represent on behalf of the Association of Indian Universities. This is my request and appeal to all the participating vice chancellors. Thank you very much for the opportunity given to the panelists and to myself as well. Now over to Dr. Susma, please.
Well, thank you very much, officers. That was a very informative and engaging session. Ladies and gentlemen, let us break for lunch now. We are actually running behind schedule, but we'll see you back at 2 p.m. for the next technical session on transforming the regulatory system of higher education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Beautifully summarized. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. Thanks to all the speakers. Thanks to our Vice President, Dr. Soni and Dr. Rama. Thank you very much. And thanks to all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.